cousin's written for you. I haven't, but my cousin Gabby has.
Oh, Gabby Khan.
Yeah,
she has. She's lovely. I love her work.
Yeah, she's good.
Amazing.
She's good.
So we're live now, so I'm gonna let the other people in,
Sure.
and then we can get cracking.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn my camera off because I just have a really weird like tweeting face, and no one wants to see that. But
oh yeah, Charlotte's gonna be doing our tweets.
Tweeting, so it's basically just a ploy to cancel Halima, basically, to catch her out.
Nice. All right, I'm just gonna I think some people are still connecting, so I don't want to start prematurely.
Okay.
Cool. One more person.
I should probably make, do you have a running order who's speaking when, so I can sort of make them co-hosts? I'll make them all co-hosts.
Maybe just make everyone a co-host. Let's be democratic about it.
Where's the harm in that? It's all fine.
Right. I think we're good to start then. Hi guys, I'm Shannon and I am your Southeast officer. If you haven't crossed paths with me before, that is what I do. This is Charlotte. She is part of the executive committee of the SPA and she is going to be running our YouTube stream. We're streaming at the moment for non-ticket holders and she will be tweeting out over the event. So that's Charlotte. I'm really excited about this panel. I've been excited about it all day and I hope you guys get something from it. We're joined by some amazing independent editors that I think have done some of the most interesting things in digital media over the past year. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I think it might be good to start you guys introducing yourselves, your publication that you edit, and how long it's been going for and where it's at now maybe. So we'll start with Halima.
Hello, my name is Halima Jabril. I'm the founding editor of a magazine called Ashamed. It's for people of colour, marginalised genders. And I think we started in 2019. I get very blurry about the timeline, but I think it was 2019. And we recently just published our first print magazine in collaboration with West 16. And it's called Black Pear. And we raised about £500 for Free Black Uni. So that's one of the things that we did this year. I'm also a history student at the University of Southampton. So yeah.
Amazing. Okay. We'll go. I'm just gonna do it in the order I see you guys on my screen. So we'll go with Fran next.
Hey, I'm Fran. I'm the founder and senior editor of Era, which is a radical history magazine. It was set up in summer 2020, so it's still fairly new. We've just published our getting to the 90s and 100s of our stories, so still kind of in the early development phase. We got a grant this year, so we've just started being able to pay people for writing, which is really cool and really exciting. I'm also work as an editor full-time elsewhere, and I'm a history and politics master's student at Berkeley.
Amazing. And Kaya, go.
Hi everyone, my name's Kaya. I'm the founder and the editor-in-chief of Aurelia magazine, which focuses on first-person stories, opinions and responses to news and culture. I started it in my student hall's bedroom in 2018. I've graduated now from the Uni of Liverpool, and we were, of course, volunteer-led for a really long time. In the last month, well, not even a month, for 3 days now, we have been operating as an outlet that can pay people. It's a very small fee, but we got bored of waiting around for somebody with more power than us to give us loads of money, and because we figured it would never happen, we have to sort of carve our own spaces out. Obviously, as somebody who, as an outlet that uplifts marginalised genders, it's not always the easiest thing. So we put some money in ourselves, the editors, and we're just going to give it a go for as long as we can. We're pretty much guaranteed to be fine till May, and then it's not sure where it's going from there, but we're just giving it a go.
Oh, well, congratulations. I saw that on Twitter a few days ago. I think it's really exciting. I thought I'd start. I want it to be pretty open in you guys taking turns to speak. So you guys don't have to be muted if you're not talking. It's all good. But I wanted to ask you first, what about your experiences in the media prior to making your publications drove you to thinking you needed to do it better yourself, as all of you have?
I think Halima's got a great way of phrasing this. I think it's on Ashamed's website, so I think Halima should go first.
Thank you. I think before I started Ashamed, I mean, to be fair, when I was pitching to like other publications, like bigger ones, when I wanted to write about like things that I thought were fun or things that interested me that didn't relate to race, nobody really wanted to hear what I had to say. It was like I realized that people actually wanted to hear what I had to say as a writer when the whole like Black Lives Matter resurged during this like last summer, and people were contacting me when I was like probably the saddest I've ever been, to write all these things about like race and trauma. And so it's kind of just like, I'm so sick of like this being the only thing that people want me to write about. And I love writing about those things because like I'm a history student, I enjoy like research and stuff like that and looking at race and gender, but like it also isn't the only thing I ever want to talk about. So I think that's kind of what prompted me to make Ashamed, because like I just felt like I wasn't really going anywhere with my writing. Like people just didn't want to hear from me, and I wanted to, do you know what I mean? So I think that's why I wanted to make Ashamed, and I wanted to just not pitch to anywhere anymore. Like I have a whole thing where I don't enjoy pitching. I haven't written in ages, and I feel like all of us have the same fear. I really don't enjoy pitching, and I've kind of just stopped. So I kind of just wanted like a fun space where we can still like talk about serious things, but also that isn't the only thing that makes you like a worthy person or like a worthy writer. I'm a terrible speaker, so sorry.
That's an excellent answer. That's absolutely not true. You're a terrible speaker. Yeah, what about you guys?
I started Aurelia because as a writer myself, it is definitely true that I think media and journalism, the writing world in general, is sort of driven by clickbait and things that want to get those clicks and want to get people like reacting to it in like a very immediate way, which works for a lot of people, and I do see why it's so popular. But also I think there needs to be a place for stories that are, you know, a lot slower and serve to uplift and calm people down and make people feel seen and heard without them feeling like their identity is on the line or being questioned or they have to defend themselves in some way. And also, when I was at uni, I did an essay that was like the only one I've ever written that I actually liked, which was about whether or not personal essays are self-indulgent. And my stance was that they're not, because we publish like essays that are all about the I, so I feel, I think, I saw. And we came across, when I was writing the essay, an article someone had written about how personal essays are awful because they just expect people to like spill out their trauma on a page. And I just wanted to sort of redress that and show that people can write about whatever they want and it will still be engaging, and you don't have to write in a way that everyone that's reading is going to either react to it or feel like they can really relate to it. There is a space for people to just tell their own stories. And I think we've done, you know, quite a good job. Well, I hope we've done quite a good job at showing that that's true. But and I kind of got sick of editors as well telling me that, you know, I had to make it more accessible, not in terms of the language, but in terms of the subject. So yeah, it's like Halima said, it's good to just be able to have your own space where, you know, you won't have to do that scary thing, go through the whole rigmarole, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And Fran, I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, Halima and Kai both put it really beautifully, and I feel like have spoken about like quite like deep and like serious things. And to be honest, like Era didn't particularly come from that place at all. It was more just a case of me pitching stuff. Like I'm also a writer, and pitching stuff to outlets that I thought was really interesting and that wasn't getting picked up. And it was kind of a case of, okay, well, I'll just do it myself then, basically. It was from, yeah, a sense that there were kind of history topics that I wanted to be able to talk about and write about and share with people and encourage other people to talk about and write about, and that there wasn't really space for them in any of the publications that I saw out there. You know, a lot of other publications will kind of touch on history as like as a vertical or as kind of like a side note, or they will like contextualize the stories that they're talking about within a bit of history, but they don't really go into it as its own subject. And the history magazines that do exist tend to be often not very cool and like either not very cool or very academic. And I wanted something that wasn't either of those things and was just accessible and could be popular and could be interesting for normal people, but also centered specifically on history and told those stories that you don't really hear. The one story that really kind of triggered that for me was reading about the fact that Pepsi, like PepsiCo, the company, was at one point the 6th biggest military power in the world because they traded a load of Pepsi with the Soviet Union in like the 70s. And I just thought that was a wild story, and like I would have loved to be able to read those kind of stories somewhere that kind of give context to this world that we're, you know, the media, in the way that it talks about news and talks about politics, encourages you to think of it as a very present thing and often doesn't share very important relevant historical context that helps us understand how these things take effect and how they happen. And sometimes that is a political thing in itself, I think, that refusal to engage with relevant history. So yeah, I wanted to be able to share the stories that are either very weird and like shock you in that kind of way, or that do help us understand what's going on in the current world. So it was, yeah, kind of seeing a gap for that and something, and being aware of something that I wanted to read that wasn't currently accessible. That was what kind of brought it about for me.
Yeah, and I know through having some involvement in ERA and knowing Fran as a friend, that starting your own publication like is bloody hard. It's bloody hard, and I've seen that through Fran's experiences, and I imagine it's the same for you guys. And I wanted to ask, has there been something unexpected about the process of running and creating your own publication that you thought, God, this is a bit of a challenge, or like just in any way unexpected about the whole experience as your publications have grown individually? I'll go to Fran.
It's really long. That was like the main thing for me when I was setting up ERA and like first building the website, was like, it's not even that it's hard. It's not even that it's like difficult as in like often particularly complex, that there's like lots of very specific technical things to work out, things like that. It's just really time consuming, like much more so than I thought it was going to be. I spent like long days sitting on the sofa, like scrolling through different like formats for the website and just testing them all out. I didn't want to miss like one that was really good, but that in itself was just a really time consuming process to end up with something that you actually like. There were a lot of moments in which I was just like, you want to kind of settle for something and just go with something that's like fine, that's like passable. But you know, if you're putting it out into the world, like you want it to be something that's pretty good and that you're proud of and that looks nice and feels nice and is nice to like consume as well. Like I really annoyed everyone that I was living with by asking them if I could look at the website before it like went live for public on their phones, on their laptops, so I could make sure that on like every different format it looked good. So that was the main thing for me, is that yeah, it wasn't it is obviously hard, but like it's very easy to underestimate the amount of time that has to go into it, both in the process of setting it up and once it's live as well. Like I think I underestimated how much time would go into the editing and the commissioning and the paying people and the admin as well, like the running the site kind of formatting and things like that. That's just long and not particularly interesting a lot of the time, unfortunately. Yeah, those are the things for me that surprised me, I think.
We'll go for Kaya.
I would echo what Fran said about time. There is no hours that you can stick to because it's your baby, and so you're just going to work on it constantly. And I mean, I've got a boyfriend, and I think at times he's found it quite difficult because I'm there, I'm working from home, I'm not there, I'm like in my laptop 100%. And you just want to make it the best it can be at all times, so you're just working around the clock to make that happen. Early days, I think there's a lot of mistakes you can make. I got for a while it was just me, and then I decided that I wanted a team, and it was volunteer led, so everyone was working for free. So I got, including myself, so I got a lot of people involved, and I think that's not always a great idea because a small team is best, I find, and also you are expecting people to give up their time, and people will say that they can give you the time that you need, but they can't necessarily, and that becomes difficult because you try to be a boss and you try to have rules, but then you also have to deal with the fact that these people are giving up their time for you. So it's a difficult line to cross, I would say. I've definitely learned my lesson there. And also I think that, I mean, this probably doesn't apply to you two at all because your publications have been completely unique since day one, but I created a publication because I wanted my own publication, and I became an editor because I made myself an editor. I'd never worked as an editor before. So I think to be a success, you have to ensure that your publication is completely unique and it's offering something unique. And in the beginning, ours wasn't. We didn't really know what we. Well, I didn't. I would say we, like we're a big franchise. I didn't know what I wanted it to be. I just know that I wanted it to exist. And then after the first year, I realised our niche was the personal essay angle that we could give to people that nobody else is really doing. And that's when we started to become more successful, because I kind of knew what made us different. So I've refined the team. It's a lot smaller now. We know exactly who we are. We've got a sort of, I hate things like this, but like an identity in terms of how we look. And I think those things really help. So if I could go back, I would have worked those things out before I launched, I think.
Yeah. And how long did it take for you to get to the point where you felt like, oh, this is really working now?
2020 was huge for us. We got a lot of opportunities that, well, I feel like took us from one level to another. So I would say last year, to be honest, and we've been going since 2018. I think the first 2018-2019 year, the work that we published was brilliant. It always has been, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I was finding my feet. 2019, much of the same. And it just so happens that I was going through really difficult things throughout those years. So I feel like my work, or even me as an editor and as somebody that people report to, I don't think I was doing the best job that I could be. But last year I really nailed it, and I really knuckled down, and I think that shows with where we currently are. So over the last year, I'd say, yeah.
Brilliant. And Halima, what's the biggest kind of challenge or unexpected aspect of running Ashamed?
The maths involved. I hate maths so much. And like when money becomes involved with things, like really, I think one of my friends is in here, Linnea, and she knows because she's the editor of West 16. And when we were doing like the calculations for things, I was like crying. I had to like call my mom, like, Mom, can you please just do the maths for this, because I can't like do it. But like the admin, like Fran said, is not what I expected. It's funny because I always thought like I just want to write and like make art and like have fun, and then like you realize you're running a business. I'm like, oh damn, like this is not, some of these things are not as fun, and I don't have the expertise for these things. So I think one of the things like I've learned from Ashamed is like not being afraid to ask for help, and like talk to other editors and be like, hey, I've seen how you did this, how can you help me and do this, because obviously you're all going through the same thing. So yeah, but that's definitely been the thing that's made me the saddest, the maths involved in everything.
I think it's good. I think it's great you guys are being so frank about it, because like I think online, which is obviously where like I'd assume all of your audiences kind of originate from, I think it's made to look quite easy. But yeah, so I appreciate you guys being so frank about it. I wanted to then on the flip side ask, on like a content level, where is there a particular kind of piece or like moment in the lifespan of your publications where you just felt like really proud of it? Like what's the proudest moment you've had so far? Like less with regards to money, because I want to touch on that later, but in terms of like content or like partnering with people and stuff, what's the moment that you've been most proud of your publications? We'll just go, I think we're going to go back and forth a little bit. So we'll go to Halima.
One of the proudest things we've published, or I published on Ashamed, it was during the Black Lives Matter resurgence in the summer, and one of my friends she had a conversation with her dad, who went to prison when she was younger. She lives in America. Her dad was sent back to Mexico. She hasn't seen her dad in many, many years. And she had a conversation with him just about like prison, how he feels. She's an abolitionist. She doesn't believe in prison, stuff like that. And it really made me so emotional, because like I never really thought about it too deeply, but like I have family members who went to prison, and I don't know why I never really made the connect. Obviously as a Black person, there was a statistic that talked about like how prison will affect most Black people's lives, and it didn't hit me until like I was reading that piece and or in that moment to like think about the way that like prison affects like my life and my family's life, and that piece just really broke me. But that was definitely one of the proudest. That's one of the pieces I love the most. It really has stuck with me in my life. But yeah.
Amazing. I'd love if you'd link me after this.
Will do.
Kaya, what about you?
A piece that really took my breath away was by a writer called Georgina Quash, and she wrote a really poetic, very honest, very vulnerable piece about it was like a love letter to her parents, but in essay form, who left Vietnam to raise her and her brother in this country, and she recounted in that all the things that they'd given up for her, and spoke about how beautiful it is when her mum uses an English word for the first time, and the way it sounds on her lips, and just how like lyrical it all is, and it was so stunning. And not only was I wowed by the piece, because I really was, I was just incredibly humbled that it was me that she trusted it with. That was a big moment. There was a writer called Danny Cole as well, who I love, and she wrote a piece about being a transracial adoptee, which of course is when you get adopted into a family of a different heritage or culture to your own. And that was amazing too. Those were the two pieces that when people ask me, what is Aurelia published, that's the kind of thing that just shines to me. I think it's really special. Those are the two that I think about all the time. They're amazing.
That's amazing. I think I've read the Danny Cole piece because I follow her on Twitter, and I'm sure some of our audience do too, because I think she's a really interesting voice when it comes to like people being honest about breaking into the industry at the moment. I think her experiences in relation to identity and stuff. So that's really cool. That's really interesting.
Danny's amazing. She's like an on the ground Manchester reporter, like a proper journalist. Yeah. So she wanted to write that piece for me on identity, which is different to the kind of thing she usually writes, which again was just like a huge compliment. She's such a talent. She really is.
And Fran, what about you?
I bet, Shannon, you're probably going to know which piece I'm going to say, but it was one of the pieces that we had for our launch, I think, that really jumped out at me. It was Maeve Diffley writing about Boudica, like the kind of co-option of Boudica as a political figure by the right wing, basically, and by conservatives and by the kind of imperialist movement, as opposed to, you know, what she was ultimately, which was like an anti-imperialist indigenous figure. And it was like the topic was very much the kind of thing that I wanted to be publishing about, but it was less actually about the topic and more about the tone of the writing, which absolutely like hit on the head what it was that I wanted to be publishing. It was very irreverent, which I think was actually the most important thing. A lot of like history publishing, as I said, is very academic and very serious and very like earnest and like sincere, which is important when you're dealing with a lot of these topics. But like she was very like, you know, using like, it was very casual, like very conversational language, like not unashamed to like swear in her writing or like use like jokes or like talk about sex or like things like that, which like is exactly the kind of thing that we need more of when people talk about these topics that are otherwise very academic and like quite inaccessible. And it was exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to be publishing. And I think when you're working on these kind of things, it's hard to actually visualize what it is that you want to be publishing until someone gives it to you. Like until you see it, until you actually see a piece and you're like, yes, this is exactly like what all these kind of like disparate elements in my head were like meant to come together to form. And although we've published a lot of really, really brilliant writing since, like I like everything that goes out, but that I don't think we've had a piece yet that's quite hit that note quite so exactly. So that was a real high point for me, and it's something that I think I'm going to be trying to like work towards again in the future, which is nice to know what it is that you're kind of pushing towards. But yeah, just something about the tone of that writing like surprised me, and it was just very, very entertaining and accessible, which is exactly what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah, I mean I think it was excellent to launch with, and I think knowing Maeve, I think it's a really good example of reading a piece of writing and despite it being like non-fiction, like the character of someone jumping out completely. So I couldn't agree more on that one. I think it was brilliant. Charlotte was just asking what the piece was specifically. So I think with what you guys have discussed, if you could like link me after this talk, and we'll like maybe put them out on the SPA kind of Twitter and stuff, of like examples of stuff that you've put out that you've been really proud of. I think that'd be really useful to our audience. I wanted to ask you guys about the dreaded topic of money. I know you guys have all, I mean, Aurelia becoming paid with a matter of days ago, Era doing so a couple of months ago. I know Halima with the collaboration, the Black Power collaboration, that was crowdfunded, wasn't it too? So I was wondering if you guys could kind of talk about your journey towards your publications reaching the point where either you thought we need to be putting something out that's like financed in Halima's case, or like we need to be paying our writers now. So I'll go again backwards. I'll go to you, Fran, first with Era.
I think it was always a goal. Obviously, asking people to work for free is shit, and people shouldn't have to do it, and it, you know, makes you feel shit asking people to do it. And obviously it's always voluntary, like you're not forcing anybody into doing it. And a lot of the writers that we had in the early days were students and people who were, you know, keen to get their kind of early work out there and kind of get a foot on the ladder, which is fine. But like it doesn't make you feel nice asking, not being able to, you know, pay people for their time, which I'm sure everyone knows. So that was it's fairly recently that we started being able to pay people. I think it was maybe towards the end of last year. So we had a good few months of not being able to, which is like, I think is fine when you're a publication starting out, but obviously it's not the ultimate goal. So it was always a goal to be working towards being able to pay people. And we hadn't really amassed the kind of following that we thought would be able to do, like to be able to crowdfund it basically at the start. And we're not like brave enough basically to put our own money into it like you have, Kaya, which is really impressive. So we applied for a grant from a trust called the Lippmann Miliband Trust, which funds socialist education projects and kind of left-wing political education projects. And we got that, which is amazing. So that was £2,000. I would really recommend that people apply to them. They're very generous and very supportive if you're doing anything that kind of aligns with their politics and their viewpoint. So that is enough to tide us over for a while. We're paying about £50 for a piece at the moment, which obviously is far from ideal, but it's good to be able to give people something, basically, even if it's a bit of an honorarium. And we've also set up a Ko-fi. I don't actually know how to pronounce it, you know. I've always said Ko-fi, but then I was like, maybe it's supposed to be coffee, because it's like a cup of coffee. Anyway, we set up that and had a bit of money coming in from that as well. And obviously, if we're only paying people £50, it can tide us over for a bit longer, even if we make, you know, a couple of £100 off that. It's not ideal, and it's probably not sustainable for a huge amount of time. And I think we'll need to look into other ways of doing it in the long run. Or I guess, you know, if you're crowdfunding publications, the idea is that the more readers you amass, the more will hopefully donate and be able to fund it in the long run. But it's one of the hardest things, I think, looking for ways to fund things, is, as I'm sure Halima and Kaya both agree.
Yeah. Kaya, I know you guys had I forget the platform name. It's like you had the tiered structure for a while, didn't you guys?
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. The name completely escaped me there. But yeah, I was wondering if you could share your experiences with that and like other methods of sourcing your kind of income.
Yeah, I could talk about this specific thing all day, mainly because people like us who make our own platforms because we want to add something new to the landscape are given a lot of ashamed, sometimes publicly, by people with followings who aren't, okay, as you can probably tell, it makes me quite angry, but who aren't in our spheres. So for example, Halima and I focus on people who are underrepresented, marginalised. A lot of places aren't doing this, and we offer, I hope, a space to people who are starting out or feel that otherwise they won't be able to get their foot in the door. So some people really don't like that we couldn't for a long time afford to pay people And that is obviously never coming from a place where we're just choosing that we don't want to. And it's not, you have to keep building to get to that place. So when I say that me and the editors put money in, it was not a large amount. We've saved, we've scrimped, we had Patreon, we still do. We have that to thank so much. We make around £70 a month off that at the moment, which is just incredible and has really allowed us to grow exponentially. And like I said, we're only guaranteed till around May, but it was just the step we wanted to take. We were operating as a voluntary publication for ages, and it felt safe and it felt like a community. And I think that communities like ours get given a really bad time, but ultimately would the people who have a lot to say about that. And I don't think it's because they feel necessarily bothered themselves that they aren't getting paid, because it's just because often they're selling something that they want to get paid for. But would people rather we not exist? That's the question I've got, because if we hadn't created these spaces, then all of our work wouldn't exist. And it's not like we're taking money and other people aren't. And I think that's important to note in the payment debate, because if you're profiting off of people, that is of course wrong. But if you're just creating a space because you felt like you wanted to, not even because you felt like you had to, but just because you wanted to, that should be allowed. And I will defend that forever. When people come to me now and they're like, I want to make a publication, but I've got no money, I'm just go for it, because it's fine. And people will, like Fran said, often students, they will be the people who come to you first. And that's also fine. But yeah, we got to a point where we've registered as a company now. The Patreon's really helped us. Word of mouth, of course, and like Twitter and things really help you grow. You get donations. It's a really good idea to have like a PayPal open that people can offer one-off donations to, because every so often someone will put a £5 in, and of course it adds up. And I'm lucky that the deputy editor Shahad is like amazing at finances. She's got like a little Excel spreadsheet on the go that I don't understand, but it's there and it's happening. Yeah, so we're giving it a go. But my final point on the finance thing is that if you're gonna sit on Twitter and give people a hard time for not being able to pay people, it isn't that simple. It's never that simple. To small publications like ours, it's never that simple. That's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think because it cropped up again, the whole debate quite recently, didn't it? And I couldn't believe the like ignorance of professionals in paid staff jobs to suggest that that's like something that people in you, like the position of you guys, shouldn't be able to do. So I'm really glad that you raised that, Kaya. And I'm sure your audiences and people that have had the opportunity to write for you guys would agree. Like they would have much rather written for you guys, got a byline, and like got to have that experience than not ever at all because of that barrier.
Yeah, it's super disheartening, and I come back to this example all the time, but like Garda have been so helpful to me with their advice and their guidance and friendship, but also having existed as a platform that couldn't pay their writers. I think that's instrumental and always gets left out, because obviously Gatham are huge, like they're such a respected, for good reason, media source. We can't always just start off with thousands of pounds, because life doesn't work like that for all of us. So it's important to note that as long as you are somewhere in your brain, at least hoping one day to be able to pay people, then you're fine. And you shouldn't feel any shame for that, because it's a process. And I think I would even go so far to say there's so many independent publications now, to varying degrees of whether they pay or not. And I really do think it's started a community, and it's really changed the way that a lot of bigger editors look at pieces of writing. And that can't be, you can't doubt that. And, you know, again, like I say, would you rather us not exist? Hopefully not. I hope no one would think that. But yeah, we exist because we want to, and we're all trying our best.
Exactly. And exactly, Galden paved the way for that sort of mentality, I think. I've only met Charlie once, but what she said always stuck in my head, and that's that she wasn't even able to salary herself when they had like a workspace, like an office. She like didn't know month to month how much money they were going to be making from it. So it took 2 years to get to that place, and it's admirable and definitely paved the way for what you guys do now, I think. So that's incredible. And Halima, in your experience with Ashamed, like, where do you stand on the money front, with the collaboration, the Black Power collaboration with West 16? Like, how did that come about in terms of crowdfunding and stuff?
Completely agree with Kaya. It pisses me off so much, and it's always like annoying white women who open their mouths and they just it's really annoying because I feel like they never have like a nuanced conversation. They're always talking from the position of privilege as well. The fact that, like, you know, people who work for free are like ruining the industry, blah blah. Like, people don't want to hear what people of color, people of marginalized genders have to say. So like, instead of you like saying things like, oh, you shouldn't write for free, like talk to the people who like won't pay us to write for them. Do you know what I mean? Go to the source. Why are you picking on marginalized people for, do you know what I mean? The question irritates me so much. But with Ashamed is volunteer led at the minute. We were able to pay some of our contributors for the Black Power magazine because we raised a lot of money. So I really wanted to make sure that we paid like the Black contributors for the work they did for Black History Month in October. We were actually not going to crowdfund at first. My university are meant to pay for this collab, but universities suck. So they were not able to pay. So we ended up crowdfunding, which was fine. We had issues with it actually, because I can't remember what we used. I think we used a crowdfunder, but at first we used like GoFundMe or something. I can't remember, maybe the other way around. But there's a little thing that they make you tick that if you make all the money, you can have it, but if you don't make all the money, you can't have the money. And we clicked on, I clicked on the one that said, if you don't raise all the money, you can't have any money you've raised. So we had to redo the fundraiser to a different platform, so we were able to at least get any, like, even if we didn't reach the total amount, that we were able to get some of it. But we ended up making, I think we got all the money we wanted to crowdfund, and then we published the magazine. But yeah, money is hard and complex, and we were able to work with somebody said something. We were able to work with Monkey last year, which was super fun, and they gave us money, which is nice. And it means that we're going to be able to like pay people and stuff like that. But I probably won't look at any of that until I finish my dissertation. So I can't say too much about it because I haven't looked at all that stuff yet. But school is my priority at the minute. But yeah, money is hard.
And is that Monkey the clothing brand?
Yeah, Monkey the clothing.
Yes, because I've seen they like promoted promoted on Instagram, haven't they? That's incredible because they've got an audience of several 100,000.
Yeah, so super cool. One of my friends, I did a thing with Love Magazine last year. It was sometime, who knows, pandemic. But I worked for Love Magazine, and then I met a girl who worked with Monkey, and we were really good friends. So she thought it'd be a good idea for us to work together, which is how that happened.
Amazing. And for anyone tuning in on this or the YouTube, or anyone watching this in the future when it gets archived, that maybe hasn't pitched to you guys before and is thinking of doing so, like, could you each outline kind of what you're looking for and like what really hits and what doesn't and stuff when it comes to maybe a younger student journalist looking to like work with either one of you guys? Halima, you go first.
Wait, can you say that again? I was reading the comments.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I have a tendency to ramble. Just if someone either in this or like tuning in on YouTube or the archive and stuff wanted to pitch to Ashamed, like what works and what doesn't, like could you kind of outline what you look for? Like when do you get an email and read it and think, God, like give me this?
I don't know. I love when I don't really have like a criteria. This is what I was freaking out about this with Ashamed, because I feel like people say we have an identity, but I also feel like I don't know if we have like a set thing, because like I love like things to do with like films and things to do with like serious topics, and we do like a bunch of things like that. So I don't have like a preference of the things I look for. Most of the time, like when I read a pitch, if it's something that's made me like feel something, that's when I'm like, yeah, that's good. Like somebody wrote a whole pitch about like 500 Days of Summer and about how like nobody's the bad guy, because everyone has always talked about how it's always what's his name? I can't remember his name. The fella who likes the Smiths, who's the bad guy. But she was like, they're both the bad guys. And I was like, how? And it was such a great pitch, and it interested me so much. So just like, I feel like when people write a pitch about things that make them excited, like you can really tell. So pitch also that makes you excited, you know. Shaman's really bright and like colorful. So if you can like match the energy, then it's great.
And slide that into any pitching don'ts.
Oh, you know, not even a pitching don't. I hate when people like, I get a lot of like little emails about like, I am an activist, blah blah blah, and I get these like weird interviewee things I don't really like. I end up just ignoring them. So don't pitch those things. But no don'ts really. Do what you like.
It's good to know. What about you, Kai?
What Halima said about making you feel something, I mean, yeah, 100%. As mentioned, we publish first person stories, so it can be an experience that you've been through or something that you're thinking about. It can be a response to TV, film, culture, the news, or just an opinion that you've got. As long as you're at the centre of it, I'm interested in that. I'm always going to be interested in that. It doesn't matter if you think it's very small. In fact, I really enjoy essays that focus on the small stuff. I think that as long as you've read the website and have a feel of who we are and what we do, then there's not really published pitching don'ts for me, apart from when someone's clearly just pitched it to loads of places and then comes to you, but a lot of that doesn't fit on our website because of what we publish. So that's always a bit disheartening to think, oh, like, because it's nice to think that someone's pitching you because they want to be published in your publication, but yeah, I love pitches that I want to know what makes you happy. I want to know what brings you joy. I want to know, because like I mentioned earlier, people have an idea of personal essays that it's all got to be trauma or grief based, and those things 100% have a place. But we've gotten to the point now where I have to question whether or not we're adding anything new to the conversation around those topics, or if it's just difficult to read. So at the moment, especially, I'm very interested in your joyful stories. If you've learned something new, if you've got an interesting hobby, if you've really connected with a TV show or been thinking about your family or yourself, I love all of that stuff. There's so much more to you than the bad things that have happened to you. So I think exploring that in writing is a really beautiful thing.
Brilliant. I think that would be really useful to like any prospective student journo that's looking to write for you guys, as I'm sure many are. Yeah, so Fran, what about Era? Because obviously Era's less based in identity, but I think with a lot of stuff that's been put out, people are able to work identity and stuff into there, but generally do's and don'ts of pitching.
For Era, like, yeah, not like identity doesn't need to be at the center of it. It's about telling a story is the thing that I really want to read. With that, I don't like, I'm not as interested in like commentary. A lot of what we get pitched is like, I want to talk about like this commentary, like I want to talk about why this thing is important or why this is related to this or whatever, which is interesting, but what we really want to do is tell historical stories. I really just want to read like a narrative, like an engaging narrative that's exciting and that, you know, is like reading a good book and that you want to get to the next paragraph, you want to find out what happens. That's what excites me. And ideally start stories that I don't know and that I haven't heard before and that have, you know, a surprising ending or a surprising twist, and like to some extent having a similar kind of structure to like a fiction story, but it's real, which is, you know, exciting bit. That's the thing that I think a lot of the pitches don't quite land on, because it's not something that a lot of the time publications are looking for at the moment. A lot of the time they want to read more commentary based things, which you know are important in their own way, but it's less what we do. In terms of pitching do's and don'ts, I completely agree with Halima in that I want to read things that you sound excited about, like that you're genuinely personally interested in. I don't have a huge amount of don'ts particularly. The thing that jumps out at me the most is actually like length. The thing that like when I get a pitch that's really long, it's just becomes hard work to read it a lot of the time. And you know, when you're reading pitches, time is really tight, and I don't have a lot of time to spend on reading every individual pitch. So I know that it can be hard to like condense that excitement into like a limited amount of sentences, but it does make things a lot easier for the editor if you can make it short, and if you can show that as a writer you're not going to need loads of editing. Unfortunately, I know that sounds very cynical, but like when time is limited, and when, as we all are, you're doing it alongside, you know, none of us are getting paid to do this editing, so alongside your full-time job or your freelancing or whatever, when your time is very limited, like I want to know that you're not going to be like a massively time-consuming writer, which I know is like a sad thing to say, and like I'm willing to like give people help and support when I can and if I can, but it does help if you can keep things condensed and like show that you can condense that information into like an accessible, like short, snappy, exciting piece of writing. But your pitch is your first opportunity to show off your writing, so take it as that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've realised we're almost at the end, so I'm wondering if I should open up for questions, and then if we've got no questions, I've got one more thing to ask you. Is that cool? Okay. Has anyone got any questions? If so, unmute or pop in the chat. I think we're good. So the one thing I wanted to ask you guys to conclude everything is like in a sentence or two, like, where do you see your publication going next? Or like, where do you want it to go next? What's the like next goal? So we'll go, Fran.
No idea, you know, that's quite a hard question. It's not really something that I've thought about enough, which I definitely should have done. It's useful to have like a bit of a vision and a plan. I have kind of ideas of like where I would like to take things in the long term, but they're not really next steps. They're more like, you know, next steps.
That works.
Huh? What? Sorry.
No, that works too.
I think in the long term, publishing a print mag would be really cool. It's just nice to have something like tangible that you can hold in your hands. You know, as great as digital publishing is, and as important as it is to be accessible for everyone, it's nice to have something tangible as well. I would like to be able to publish more regularly. At the moment, we're quite limited in the amount that we can put out, mainly because it's something that we're very much working on alongside all of our own full-time jobs, which have to take precedence, and you know, studying and family stuff, and everyone's been depressed during lockdown, so you know, have to make time for that as well. So yeah, to being able to put out more would be nice, and just making it feel a bit more like it's kind of a solid, reliable thing, rather than kind of putting out bits and bobs where we can. Being able to schedule a bit more time for it in the day generally, and having it just be a bit more reliable, I think is the next step that we need to take things to.
Cool. And Kaya, what about you?
Ooh, I would love for Aurelia to be able to be my full-time job too. We can now pay £40 a piece for the writing that we publish, but myself and the team of staff are still working voluntarily. We're not taking any money. So of course I'm still working on other things to keep this going. So that would be good. But on a more basic level, I've always said that with Aurelia, my goal is for people to come away from it feeling like they understand other people a little bit more, understand themselves a bit more, and eventually will understand the world a bit more. Everything is so divided right now. Obviously, I don't need to say that, it's very obvious, but it's quite a hard place to be at the moment. It's a hard place to live. It's fractured. I hope that by publishing thoughtful, personal stories, we will understand how important it is to listen to each other, and to place a spotlight on the way people feel, and to know that that's just as valid as being angry by other pieces of journalism. So that's how I'll put it. Thank you.
Amazing. And Halima, to conclude, what about you?
I've lost my train of thought, which is unfortunate. Oh yeah, I hate thinking about the future, because like, you know, I just hate thinking about the future. But I think I really want to make another print magazine, as everyone, you know. I love print magazines. I have so many magazines at my house. I just love like the feel and the touch, and I'm so proud of what we made with West 16. I learned so much from working with magazine as well. It's really such an honor. So I'd really like to make another magazine. It'd be so cool. I also really want to continue using, we don't make a lot of money, of course, but like whatever money we're able to make, giving it back to charity or giving back to the community, I'd love to continue doing that. I think that's really important. I really don't know. I'd love for a change to my full-time job. I'm about to leave uni, don't have a job lined up. I don't know if I'm going to do my master's. Would love to continue doing things like this. So yeah, I don't know. Just I want to keep having fun. As long as it keeps being fun, I'm good.
I think that's great. I think it's okay not to know, but I think that's a good thing, just to make it fun. I think we're gonna wrap it up now because the next panel starts quite shortly. I want to thank you all for coming. I know that you're all incredibly busy, and I think this has been invaluable to the people that are watching either here, YouTube, or will watch it when we like send it out to our publication members. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think you're all doing like incredible things as far as independent publishing is concerned, and you should all be like super proud. I was about to swear there. I'm allowed. I think I'm allowed to.
You.
Oh, Charlotte's here. Hi.
Yeah, I've been there the whole time just typing. I've got like carpal tunnel from live tweeting all day. like was it 3 back panels or 4?
Pardon?
Is this our 4th panel today?
I think so. And then I have to talk now in the next one.
Yeah, I've got to go to therapy now. So probably shouldn't say about my life, should I? Oh well, these stigmatized mental health boys, you know.
Transparent.
Open up the dialogue.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna end this now, but thank you all